Hello and welcome to Chat DPS, where this week Adam, and Robert and myself will be talking about directors' responsibilities and how that's sort of evolving, and also a little bit about GRC essentials and what do we need to really think about when we're actually looking at our own businesses and actually saying, well, what should we be doing, picking a standard, and what's really changing in that environment. But to kick us off, there was a report that came out this week. There's a call to action, really. 6 agencies, 5 eyes, all about directors' responsibilities. Robert, can you kick us off on this one, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'll bear with me, I'll probably read out some of the stuff that came out from the statement. So, yeah, it was listed as a call to action. So, serious stuff. So basically, it's the Five Eyes saying initially we urge leaders. So it's all very powerful stuff. And look, I'll preface this by saying a lot of what they're saying is not new, and so we can talk about that. But I guess it has to be said, and it has to be said again, and hopefully, eventually sinks in. And really, the early sort of twist. And again, even though we've been talking about it for a while, the early twist is AI. The rest of it is should be sort of teaching so and so to suck eggs. Okay, so they say we urge leaders to understand and assess risk, readiness, and accountability. Okay. Prioritize foundational cybersecurity practices and controls. Okay. Well, here's our GRC essentials. Empower cyber leaders with authority and resources. Well, the Adams can talk to that. And stay
we could, but we haven't been empowered. So,
oh, there we go. And then stay actively engaged as threats and guidance evolve. Okay, so that's your sort of your core. And then there's some core principles that's worth shouting out, which are and before everyone groans, secure by design and secure by default must become standard practice, not an aspiration. That's the first one. Second one, resilience cannot depend on a single solution or technology. Defense in depth remains essential. And then finally, as AI systems evolve, new and previously unknown vulnerabilities will emerge, including zero-day vulnerabilities. Okay, and then the last thing I want to say is they give some practical actions again, which will not surprise anyone. Number one,
say it how I said it, Robert. Go.
No, you can say it how you said it. Okay, number one, reduce your attack surface. Number two, accelerate patching processes. Number three, address legacy systems. Number four, review and strengthen identity and access controls. Number five, prepare for incidents before they happen. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Like I say, nothing really new in there other than you've got to accelerate now because of these frontier models and what they can do, both in terms of attack and also defense.
So this for me highlights another report that came out this week, which basically said the most stressed executive in any organization is the CISO, right? And because everything that you've just read out there is cross-functional, but all comes back to the CISO. Is that fair, guys? Because, I mean, I'm not being funny. You live this every single day of the week, and we just point and laugh at you, right?
You go first, Adam.
Well, look, I had a full head of hair on a year ago, but no, that is untrue. I will say, I think there's stress in every one of the executive heads. I think CISO's role has started to get a lot broader than it was originally. There's been a lot of talk of, does the CISO report into the CIO? And in a lot of businesses, that's no longer the case. And now the role moves across a lot of domains instead of just technology. And as one of the only executives that do that with the chief risk officer and the CFO, that's where I think a lot of the stress comes from. I wouldn't say it's more stressful than those guys. I think it's similar in stress from that perspective. I just think there's more 4 a.m. potential or 2 a.m. potential calls for the CISO.
Yeah. Adam Green, do you want to add to that?
I think so. A lot of the data or a lot of the rhetoric we're hearing is around, I think, more so than the stress is the fact that the average lifespan of a CISO in a role is 18 months, is what we've seen some reports say.
Yeah, but that's
And
because you guys are not diplomatic, right?
It, no. It's
we're
because
not a cross-section of
usually,
all CISOs, us two here.
usually people will hire a CISO with the skill set they think they need, not the skill set they do need. And
Exactly.
therefore they put someone into a position that they're not equipped to handle. And that's where this stress cater has come from. And they don't support them to build them there.
Right. So
And
that's where the
a good
surprises come
CISO,
from.
and like a good CISO should have specific skill sets in specific areas and can't be a jack of all trades. And I think a lot of organizations expect and Adam's sitting there going, piss off, I'm a jack of all trades.
I'm a terrible CISO.
but they seriously, like, we want everything. And then the CISO comes in and goes, like, me in my position, I'm like, I specialize in incident response and preparing you for when the flag goes up. But if you want to know what the best endpoint protection is, I'm going to point you to someone else, because I'm not sitting there looking at every single endpoint protection product and keeping up with what's going on in EDR and XDR and MDR and whatever all the DRs are. So there's organizations look at, okay, now we need to modify what we're after. You've got square peg round hole in some cases. And that's where you've got, okay, 18 months, you pull the ripcord, you're out as the CISO. And then we're seeing a lot of the roles aren't being refilled, especially in the mid-market space. And then that leads to the rhetoric that there's further stress in the CISO role.
I think you nailed it, though, with regards to jack of all trades, because you go into it and the people don't know how to build a JD around exactly what you are there to do, right? And your expectation when you go into a role is, I'm a CISO and this is what a CISO is. And they've got an expectation, which is a CISO. Oh, but this guy knows technical, this guy knows a little bit of legal, this guy knows a little bit of that, a little bit of the other. And I think that's where a lot of stress is coming from. So maybe this director's responsibility piece, and it does tie back through, right, is the fact that they've got to actually get their act together with specifying. I was trying to tie it back through. Not all about you, Adam.
Or Adam.
Or Adam, yeah.
It's never about me.
Or me. But the point here is the fact that the directors have actually got to start getting better at doing selection, understanding what they require, and what is called upon in order for them to be successful in their roles. Yeah.
This is the root cause analysis thing for directors, right? So a director will bring on an executive hire for an issue without understanding the root cause of the issue. So the issue is, and we'll use Mr. Green here as an example. The issue is hackers are trying to get in, cyber criminals are trying to get in constantly to our stuff. We need to get better at securing, and we need to get better at incident response. So my CISO needs to be able to build that for me, as opposed to looking at it and going, hang on a second, do I need a more strategic focused CISO who will build the skills and resilience within my people to be able to manage all of that? Or do I need someone who'll come in with the technical expertise and the background to be able to build the process that our people will go into? And they don't marry those two things together, for example, if we just use that as an example.
They end up wanting the Swiss Army knife that does all of those things at 0.01% skill set.
Yeah. So Robert, I mean, I think coming back to you, mate, is I mean, if you look at this, I mean, the Swiss Army knife, sort of analogy is actually quite profound here, right?
It is. But I think it comes back to let's go back to some of those key points, and it's profound in the sense of if you don't have a proper plan and you don't do your GRC in the appropriate way, then you are going to end up with the wrong skill set in the wrong positions. So while these are basic things, how many organizations are doing this sort of thing properly, understanding, assessing risk, readiness, and accountability. From our experience, how many organizations do we actually come across that are actually doing these fundamentals? prioritizing foundational cybersecurity practices and controls. This is something you will delegate down to CIO and CISO. And this comes to your point. Here's a segue of what are the standards, what are the guidelines, what should actually be introduced, and the high level answer, of course, is it depends. It depends on what sector you're in, what risks you
Sector.
face, what
Yeah.
resources you have, and you have
How
to do
big
and
you are.
and you have to come up with a plan
Yeah.
which is proportionate to all of those things.
Yeah.
And then once you understand, and you think about your data, you think about what you've actually got, your assets, your IT, your OT, and all these sorts of things. You have an understanding of all of that, and then you can actually figure out, okay, well, we should be implementing 27001 as a standard. We should be, implementing Essential 8 controls or whatever it's going to morph into. So
Don't trigger Adam Cunningham by saying Essential 8.
Let's go. I just thought I'd drop it in there.
So look, I mean, actually, it does segue across really quite nicely into the next section, which is really all about, sort of like what standards, what are the essentials, where are we going, and what we're doing. So we have seen this week again the fact that there is going to be an amendment to the Essential 8. And this is for businesses that don't know better, apparently, or should know better, and we're trying to get a lead on that. But also, as you've already alluded to, Robert, it's about understanding what standards you need to implement within your own organization according to the vertical that you're in, your size, your jurisdiction. Whether you're in Queensland or New South Wales, it might be a little bit different, coming from Australia these days, because the feds are they're trying to make it easier, I think. Adam Cunningham, to begin with, let's explore this a little bit further. So the GRC imperative is to make sure that you understand what you do in your marketplace, right?
Yeah, and it's also to get your business to a baseline risk that you're happy with. And that they're the two sides of it. The UK has come up with their Cyber Essentials, which is a slimmed down version of our Essential 8, or whatever they're changing it to now, whatever the name is, just the Essentials. And basically the Cyber Essentials idea, they just have 4 core technical controls for businesses. So it's very technical focused. It's like, make sure you secure your configurations, access control, firewalls, malware protection, and patch management. It's those 5 things that kind of cross all the borders, and it just gives you a set of rules to be able to go with. And that's something that like medium level businesses and smaller businesses can comply with. So it's funny because as a CISO, it doesn't matter which standard you utilize so long as you use it consistently, because you're building that base risk to where you want it to be.
So a cultural shift then, Adam Green. I mean, you go into any organization and you see values up on the wall and all the other bits and pieces, and you know that nobody in that organization lives to any of those bloody standards because, you've seen how they behave generically. And so let's start talking about values-based cultural shift by using the standards that you need to do. So you're driving outcomes internally within your business according to the standard that you want. So this is no longer vanilla. This is about Raspberry Ripple. It's having a Neapolitan approach to how you approach your problems. Yeah, is that a fair way of putting it?
It is, but I mean,
it's so much more.
it's interesting because you get the licorice all sorts. No, it's interesting because you see this happen time and time again, and Adam would have seen this, and Robert, you would have seen this. We go in, we speak with organizations, and we go, right, you want to comply with this particular standard, so we're going down this path and we're doing this standard. And we get a language that comes back to us that sounds like, oh, they get it. And that language is consistent for about 4 weeks. And then things start to slide back. And then we start walking through doors without badges again. And then we start seeing, that we stop hearing about reports for potential phishing emails. And so the gamification side of it starts to drop off. And then people slip back into, oh, this is the way we've always operated. So keeping that cyber culture and the culture of vigilance active and consistent is probably the hardest job right now. And I think that we are seeing people and culture getting a lot more involved in what we talk about in cybersecurity. And that's been a bit of a quantum shift. And when I say people and culture, I mean like your head of people and culture or HR department. We speak with HR departments a lot more now in cyber than we ever did. Is that what you're seeing on your side, Adam?
They are partners. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it used to be,
HR
I spoke
business
heaps with
partner.
HR. I spoke heaps with HR, but I think it was to do with something called an HRV and I was
Isn't
the
that a car?
subject. But now it's actually, it's of course you'd pick that up. But now it's actually, no, how can we embed this into our culture? So there's a positive that we're seeing there. And then the positive gets drawn back when we get the no shit Sherlock kind of response with the 5 eyes thing that came out, where it's like, that stuff's pretty bloody basic.
I have a polarizing view on this one, and
Yeah.
it goes with, I'll ask you guys a very simple question. Why do we work? Why do we
Pay
work?
our bills.
Many different
To get
reasons.
paid,
For the
right?
fulfillment of
So-
it. Sorry.
So the issue, absolutely, for the fulfillment of every 15 minutes, yes. But what I'll say is, and the only time that it's actually worked, the culture is how you treat people, right, in your business, and that stems from the bottom up and top down. However, when it comes to security culture or managing people's actions to do the right thing, not the easy thing, only way to make sure that that happens is for it to affect your paycheck. If it's a KPI, that means you don't get your bonus, you will see that it gets done.
And this is where performance, like we spoke about last week, the performance requirement as far as productivity and statistics has to stop overriding the safe behavior. And that's the bit that we struggle with. And Nick, you talked about you walk into places and you see their mantras and their visions and their core values on the walls. I've been in way too many environments where one of those mantras that gets stuck on the wall is the beatings will continue until morale improves. And I think part of the stress of being a CISO is we've been the purveyors of the whippings. And I think now, because HR is getting involved, the CISO and the security department are a little bit more empowered now. And that's actually a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel for the security cohort. But we are still in this period of transition and everyone's still trying to catch up with what's going on with AI and understanding that AI and cybersecurity are no longer two separate conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I am interested about the whole HR involvement and the growing role of HR within the people and culture side of things within an organization, because quite clearly behavior within an organization is very much, sort of like, are we going to let people in? I did want to pick up on your point about KPIs though, because KPIs is an interesting perspective on things, because you can either take money away that was there as an offer. Yeah. So we're offering you to achieve this amount. And then it's a completely, how do you measure that? In the end of the day, it's quite an emotional measurement. Oh, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, you didn't do the other. So I'm taking that away from you, because people actually think that because you've said you're going to give them, I don't know, $2,000, whatever it is, in a quarter or a half or a year, and we're going to take that. Oh, we're only going to give you half of that. And it's like, what? Well, why? Hold on a minute, why? And there's no real explanation for it. So do we actually need to start coming up with some better means of measurement, because people don't understand that KPI that they're wrapped around it? Maybe.
Something I've done in the past, and something that we do here, is it's tied to outcomes. So certain outcomes and your KPIs have a percentage amount. So let's say we'll use easy numbers, right? $1,000. If 10% of your outcome is tied to, or if 10% of your bonus is tied to X outcome, and that outcome doesn't happen, then there goes $100.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you just need to be able to put in what a realistic outcome is. But this is where and I've said this a number of times, where the issue we have today is lazy leadership. No one wants to do the boring work of figuring out what it is the company needs to do over the next 5 years and right setting that within the company.
Yeah, yeah. So so for me, it's just this holistic view of, hey, look, we really do want to get to be a better cultural organization. We want people to be able to, be more useful to the group and and what have you, and better outcomes. I'm still not completely satisfied with the KPI thing, but anyway, I
We
think
can do a reverse bug bounty. So
Well, I
every
mean,
time someone clicks on dumb shit, we take money off them. So forget
yeah,
about the incentive.
$10 a
It's
click.
cost you
Like,
money.
the beatings will continue until morale
Mhm.
improves. Is
Correct.
exactly that
I,
sort of
I
debate.
prefer look. I prefer the gift idea over the stick idea, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think for doing things or exceeding, you should have an extra. So if your bonus is 10%, it can go above that if the following things happen,
Yeah,
as opposed to removed. And that's where KPIs tend to really get people going. It happens with CEOs, for example. If the board
yeah.
decides that growth is where it needs to go to, then their multipliers become the organic growth number
Yeah.
as opposed to.
Yeah, because Anyway, look, I guess I've taken things a little bit off track with that, but I do like your thought around that, because that's a really interesting one. And yes, if you are going for growth and you're actually meaningful, and you've got customer focus, and you've got all of those bits and pieces that are actually involved in all of that, I had a great customer outcome because this happened. Then that's a really good way of doing it. Robert, have you seen any sort of like really good incentives, or have you seen any good disincentives in any of the things that you've been involved with?
Well, okay. I don't have any good examples, but what I just wanted to say about KPIs and I like Adam's thoughts about positive
Yeah,
incentives. Um, I think you have to just be aware that however you design it, and you've got to be very clear about measurement, and you've got to be very clear about if you assign a KPI to somebody, that they can control that. But you also have to make sure you don't get perverse outcomes. So if people will change their behavior to meet a KPI to avoid a stick, and it may not be the behavior they're actually looking
you're looking
to.
for.
Yeah,
Correct, yeah.
exactly. So you've got to be very.
We fear
You
loss
need.
more
You
than
need.
we want gain.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
human
You actually
psychology.
need to. I mean, so it gets complicated, but you need to be able to have somebody who really can think through what the potential outcomes are, so that you design this in the right way.
Yeah,
That's the first thing. The other thing I wanted to say, because we've been talking about people, which is good. So we don't talk about people, process, technology. We don't talk about the people enough. The one thing I would say is that in terms of changing culture, HR is probably not the best part of the organization to do that. In my experience, they don't understand change management. And so you need people, and you may have to bring them in, that actually
I thought he was
understands
going to say they don't
organizational
understand
change.
people for a sec.
Well, there's that as well. But they don't understand organizational change management well. So if you're going to uplift, change the way cybersecurity is approached within an organization, you actually need to bring in people who know what they're doing in terms of understanding
yeah,
change, understanding how people behave, and coming up with training that actually takes them from point A to point B, and that's a specialist skill and not a generic HR skill. So that would be my
Correct.
other key
It's
point.
not just training though, right? It's support. Like, what are the
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
levers that are needed by the group to be able to get there?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I jested about the reverse bug bounty, but where I've seen effective change in organizations is where we've gone in, we've done gamification and reward for everything that's done right. So like an easy
that's
one to
good.
pick is phishing simulations. So instead of it being the current norm is a phishing simulation goes out, and then there's a smack on the wrist, and it's like you got it wrong, bad boy, or girl or person. But we got to cover all bases here. But if you like, in my examples that I use, I've gone into organizations. We've done the awareness around social engineering and the way that your persona in your personal life can actually have an impact at your your business and then use some concrete examples of where we find that, then actually say, right, now we're going to run a phishing campaign, and this is what the phishing campaign will look like. And here's some of the examples that you will see. So be vigilant, and we're putting you in teams, and the team with the highest amount of reports by this particular date is going to get taken out for lunch on the company. And then, or you've got access to something that you want, like we'll take you out on a boat and you can go fishing or whatever.
We'll be and you get a car, and you get a car.
You get a bag, and you get a bag, and you get a drink bottle. And then so we actually gamify it, and then that automatically creates a culture of vigilance. And then the laggards that aren't interested in getting brought along, peer pressure brings them along. So we actually see meaningful change. To Adam's point, and Rob pointed out as well, is like when you put in a positive reinforcement incentive in place, that's where we see the fastest rate of change. And to Robert's point, it doesn't come from HR when we do this. It comes from the top down. It comes from leadership. It comes from those directors that have actual, legal responsibility in the event that something occurs, because there's actually a financial, like a really serious financial and potential criminal impact for them if something occurs. So they're going to drive that culture as well. And that's where we see it work really well.
Yeah, it comes back to strategy, right? I mean, that's an amazing sort of like way for us to finish today. Gentlemen, that is Chat DPS for this week. That was number 71, by the way. That's pretty cool. Thank you for all of the input. Doing well. And so that was Chat DPS for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a great conversation today. Loved it. Thank you so much, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. Bye now.
Thank you. Thanks all.